Busy night tonight for severe weather. Where else but in Texas and in surrounding areas there? After some overnight showers and some thunderstorms, some places got hit with a lot of rain last night. That, of course, moved away early this morning, and we've seen improving weather conditions all day long. And more nice weather to come. We're headed into the weekend. We'll break it all down. We'll talk about this and much more on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Use the coupon code SPRING 2024 because if you do, you will get
10 big percent off, Joe.
Yes. Good evening on this Thursday. Joe, I'm like really horribly upset tonight. Almost inconsolable because the Great America channel, which airs only three shows, okay? They only air three shows during their 24 hours, during a 24-hour period.
Okay.
They Murder, She Wrote, Columbo, and Perry Mason. And Perry Mason was on for
Ax-
six. What's that?
Axed.
No, not axed. So what they did was they, for the last number of weeks, it was just Murder, She Wrote and Perry Mason. Perry Mason would be on from 3 p.m. till 10 p.m. Then Murder, She Wrote would be on from 10 p.m. all the way through to 3 p.m. the next day. So what they did was now they moved Perry to 10 p.m. to um, 4 a.m. Then they have Columbo from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then they have Murder, She Wrote from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So I can't watch Perry during the day anymore. I'm just devastated.
You're just going to have to juggle your schedule, Joe. Either that or you run your.
No, at 10 o'clock, I have no pulse. I'm in bed. I'm asleep.
Okay.
So I'm just, I plan to write my congressperson. I plan to, you know, writes to somebody about this because it's just not acceptable. It doesn't suit me.
Sorry.
No,
There's
I
nothing
mean,
I can do about it. Nothing you could do about it.
no. Welcome tonight to everybody on the chat board on this Thursday night, the 30th of May. And welcome to those of you who are watching in the background on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss us because we're on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35. And while we are technically off on Fridays and Saturdays, every so often there's a storm around on a Friday or a Saturday. And when there is, we juggle the schedule. And we, of course, will let you know about it ahead of time. And be sure to turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. And of course, if you do like the show, you could show your enthusiasm by hitting the like button because that does make our day, doesn't it?
I'll agree with you on that point. Yes. I
All right, that point you're okay with.
mean, if you want, I could just as well say I was heartbroken at the beginning of this week because occasionally I'm up early and I'll flick on Me TV, and at 6:30 a.m. they had My Three Sons, and and they were showing the black and white versions when it was on ABC with William Frawley playing the grandfather.
Right.
And as of this past Monday, My Three Sons is no more on Me TV.
What did they replace it with?
The Flintstones.
Um, all right. Well, you know what? These are things that we just have to bear in
Yes.
our sad lives. Uh, I was surprised. I saw some pretty hefty rainfall amounts from a few places last night. Uh, got a little out of hand in some places.
We didn't get, I mean, we did get about 2/10 of an inch up where I am in Putnam County, but yeah, in other areas, it came down pretty hard for a long period. And there were thunderstorms as well. That helped to inject quite a bit of moisture into the atmosphere and resulted in some local downpours and maybe even a few areas of flash flooding. But
Yeah, Barry Goldberg. I don't see him on the chat board tonight. He's on the chat board from time to time. He got almost 2.5 inches of rain in he about 10 miles northwest of Caldwell in New Jersey. So that's just one example. But there, it certainly played out to be well above what wound up happening.
it's yeah, it's and you know the interesting thing is I got a view of it on both radar and satellite late last night. It almost looked like a miniature cyclone.
Yeah,
Or
had a little comma shape to it.
yeah, yeah. But it has spiraled away now to the north and east. Had a lovely day out there today, although there were a lot of. I will say that the atmosphere was still just unstable enough to produce a good number of billowing, puffy cumulus clouds, a broken sky during the afternoon. That pretty much has now faded out. We'll have a clear night tonight, a chilly night, too. I mean, here in the Hudson Valley, Joe, some of the coldest spots in the well inland, the rural valleys, could get down as low as 42 degrees, even along the coast. And in urban centers like Mount Vernon and Yonkers, it'll get down to about 52, 53 by daybreak. Right here in Putnam Valley, I'm thinking, it's going to get down to like 45, 46. So it's going to be a chilly night in many cases tonight. And then tomorrow, as I said yesterday, if I was still doing television, I would call it the pick of the week. Beautiful day, not much in the way of cloud cover, blue skies, bright sun, and temperatures probably just right in the low to mid 70s with low levels of humidity. And it looks like a pretty decent start to the weekend, but uh, it looks like we may not be able to get through the weekend without a little precip. Sunday looks like more clouds and another upper level disturbance, which will be moving through and possibly bringing us a chance for a shower or two later Sunday or Sunday evening.
Those little, we're generally in a ridge position, but that doesn't mean there can't be little ripples in there. And we saw them yesterday on the show last night, pointing it out on the upper air that there is one that's going to approach for Sunday, and it's a question of whether how it holds together as it moves eastward, uh, and hopefully that doesn't get out of hand either. By the way, we had a gorgeous day here in North Georgia today again. Uh, I think it got to about 74 or 75. Let me see. It's 69 right now. We were 49 this morning. I had to get a sweatshirt out when I went out to the dog park. It was really nice and crisp and cool. Uh, Not going to be that many of those days left going forward. Although here in the mountains, it usually gets down into the low 60s, even in July and August on most nights. So that's not too bad. And Coined Pig on the chat board uh, pointing out that rain where he is in the UK. And I read something today, I think on Severe Weather Europe, and they were talking about the fact that, and you brought this up yesterday with Dr. Judah Cohen talking about uh, the blocky pattern that's developing for Europe and for north and for the Northeast in the longer term, and they're forecasting snow in the mountain tops of northern Scotland uh, this coming weekend. So there's that in all this unusualness that we have been seeing. So anyhow, I guess we should get going here with the maps tonight, and we'll start off with the watches and warnings. And as I alluded to in the show open, it's another day of severe weather in Texas. Severe thunderstorm watches. We've got some severe thunderstorm warnings that are ongoing. There's a tornado watch in the western part of the state, the southern half of the western part of the state. There are flood watches all across north central and northeast Texas, and even into parts of northwest Texas. A lot of flash flood warnings that have gone up late this afternoon and tonight. I gotta believe with all the rain that a lot of these places here, especially in East Texas, have had so much rain. The flooding threshold has got to be very low.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. It doesn't look like a very high a very high bar, so to speak, for any of that to happen.
Meanwhile, we have frost advisories for some counties in northwest PA and southwest New York. Also, for a few counties around the Catskills, Chuck Cardillo, pay attention. I know you don't like gardening, but you got some issues there. And also some counties in northern New Hampshire and northern Maine, as well as out in the west in northern Idaho, actually, even parts of southern Idaho and northwestern Washington. So there are pockets of chilly air that are around. And as we take a look at the satellite, there's what's left of last night's weather system. There is a solid band of clouds. So this is from earlier today. The last frame on this loop, I'll refresh it in a minute, is at around 3:30 this afternoon, and there's still, it maybe has a little bit less of that distinct comet shape that it had earlier, but you can still see it with the brighter white cloud tops off the coast of Maine and sort of a lingering overcast in southeast New England, but everywhere else, from Maine down to Georgia and North Florida, and then west across the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley, had an absolutely lovely day. Lovely day. Dew points down here were in the 40s. I mean, how can you complain about that?
I don't think you can. And as I said many times, after you moved, down to Georgia, I said, "Oh, poor Joe. He's going to suffer now with, extreme heat during the summer and high dew points and everything." You seem to have had it better down where you are. Of course, you've got 2,200 feet of elevation to work on, but you haven't really had it all that bad since you relocated to.
No, handful of 90-degree days. I've had lower temperatures in the last couple in the winters I've been here than you have.
Right, you're
I
absolutely
mean,
right.
I went below zero 2 years in a row. I mean, who does that?
That's amazing. Pretty
Yeah.
incredible.
And by the way, the difference, I'm 100 miles northeast of Atlanta and also 1,400 feet higher. Atlanta's generally about 700 or 800 feet above sea level, and up here it's anywhere from 1,600 feet to as much as 3,500, and some people that live up here are up at 4,000 feet. Uh, the difference in weather in that, in especially when it comes to temperature, is huge. I mean, Atlanta goes to 90 here. It's about a 5 to 7 degree difference here in the daytime, and the nights are the differences are even larger. So yeah, I'm not complaining. The weather here most of the time, even in the worst part of the summer, is actually pretty bearable. We've got a lot of lightning strikes going on in eastern Oklahoma and back through northeast Texas, all through those areas where we have the severe weather watches. New thunderstorms are now forming up in the northwestern corner of Oklahoma, northeastern New Mexico, and northwest Texas. So that may be another line that's about to drop southeastward. There are some storms off of along the coast of southeast Louisiana that are moving southward, and the west coast, for the most part, is looking good, and the east is looking good. It's that middle that is a problem. And here's the radar tonight. I'm just going to update this really fast, and the green boxes are all flash flood warnings, and you see them um, across much of northeast Texas. South of Dallas Fort Worth and north of between Dallas Fort Worth and Houston, Joe, there's three flash flood warnings and one, two, three, four severe thunderstorm warnings that are in play at the moment. Then go northeast toward the Louisiana state line, and you've got three severe thunderstorm and three flash flood warnings are up. So really busy weather-wise in that area. We've got also some heavy rains and some thunderstorms moving across the western half of Arkansas, approaching Little Rock. And from what was on the satellite earlier, those storms are now in northwest Texas, where we've got two severe thunderstorm warnings, and then we've got several clusters that have formed to the south of that, where we've got a handful of severe thunderstorm warnings and flash flood warnings there. I mean, this has just been, it's been this north-south almost nonstop. They've gotten a few breaks here and there, but it's all in the middle right now, all in the middle.
I got to tell you something, John. I'm just looking here on one of the different weather sites I check from time to time. Water temperature. This is from NOAA. This is not somebody's sticking a thermometer in the water and getting an unofficial. This is from NOAA NOS Co-op's water temperature as of May 30th, 2024. That's today, 23:59 local standard time. And this temperature, actually, wait a minute. This is from 5/29/2024. Okay, so this is from yesterday, uh, leading up to 23:59, which was 11:59 last night, or I guess if it's local daylight time, it would be 12:59 a.m. this morning. Any case, this is for Key West. Key West, the water temperature for Key West as of 1800. That's when now. That's 6 o'clock in the evening yesterday. Water temperature for Key West 93 degrees,
Oh,
and
Lord.
and it bottomed out. It bottomed out at 7 a.m. I guess again that's local standard, or 8 o'clock local daylight time yesterday morning. It bottomed out at just a tad under 90 degrees. So the water temperature in and around, or at Vaca Key in the Florida Bay Area, Florida, in the Keys, the Florida Keys, 90 to 93 degree temperatures.
That's
That's
just
absurd.
that's just nuts. That's just well. They wasn't it what 2 weeks ago? The morning low there was something like 85.
Right, right.
I mean, it's just crazy. Now it's shallow. The waters off the southwest coast of Florida there around the Keys are fairly shallow. I wonder where that water temperature was actually taken from, though.
Well, still, I mean, heck, even if it was 80 to 85 for this time of the year, for temperatures to be that warm or whatever, it's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Well, it'll be certainly pretty interesting if it's a La Nina year and we're going to have an active hurricane season. Um, those water temperatures are going to be, a huge player.
You know,
Uh,
the and our friend Bill Kirk at Weather Trends 360, he puts out before the hurricane season his forecast, his prediction as to, what parts of the country are most prone to hurricane activity. From his vantage point, he thinks it's going to be the Gulf Coast that's going to get the worst of it. And believe it or not, along the Atlantic coastline of North America, the one place where he's got a high probability of tropical cyclone activity. You want to guess where he's got it?
New Jersey.
No, Nova Scotia.
Oh, Nova Scotia. Okay.
We've
Well,
been saying we've been saying that the last few years, Nova Scotia and Newfoundland have really been getting their fair share of or unfair share of tropical activity, and he apparently he believes that that's going to carry over into this year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the Maritimes
well,
of
well, well. That says trough along the East Coast.
right.
Maybe just along the East Coast, so that everything is out to the east. Now, if the trough is along the east, along the East Coast, but back around 80 degrees west, it may be more than just Nova Scotia.
Well, like I said, we'll
Yeah.
see.
You know what? That's a short range. That is a short range issue. Um, we could talk about how active a season all we want, but at the end of the day, it comes down to what is the pattern what is the pattern overall when the storm is around. So, there's nothing much else we can say until something is actually there and we have something to actually deal with.
And just looking here at some of the records, and I know I have Briller Jeopardy tonight, and talking about records at Central Park. But it was on this day in 1987, the hottest day of the year in 1987 on May 30th, with a high low of 97.74. It was the hottest temperature in May since May 29th, 1969, when the high was also 97. And that year, the hottest reading was also 97 in 1969 on this date as well. Today's sizzling high in 1987 was a record for the date breaking the previous record set just a year prior in 1986. And in 1986, we hit 94. We were nowhere near any of these records today, though. It was
Nope.
turned out a very nice day, whether you were in Georgia or whether or not you were in the New York metropolitan area.
Severe weather wise, as you can see, all of Texas except the extreme south is in some sort of risk. The main areas are the enhanced risk that covers much of the slight risk, rather, that covers much of the state and extends up into southwestern Kansas, southeastern Colorado. And then we have this area of enhanced risk that cuts across into central Texas. The tornado risk is 5% in the enhanced area and 2% just about everywhere else. Now, going forward, as we move to tomorrow, the Storm Prediction Center has an area of slight risk in eastern Colorado, westernmost Kansas, westernmost Oklahoma and northwest Texas, and northeastern New Mexico. And then another area of slight risk that goes down into south central Texas and then moves through southeast Texas and east Texas. Texas is a big state, folks, in case you don't know. And then covering half of Louisiana, cuts across on a diagonal, so it's the northwestern half, and then much of Arkansas and northwestern Mississippi. So that slight risk area includes Houston, which I'm sure they're not happy about, considering they're in one of those areas that have been dealing with severe thunderstorms and heavy rains and that have knocked out power. Uh, and some places still haven't gotten back power from storms of days ago. 5% tornado risk now being indicated. You know, earlier today in their forecast, they had the tornado risk was less than 2%. Now they got 5% tornado risk for much of Arkansas and northwest Mississippi and a sliver of northern Louisiana. 2% surrounds that, and another 2% area in south central Texas. And then that is for Friday into Saturday. And then for Saturday into Sunday, which is day 3, we have a slight risk in eastern Colorado, western Nebraska, western Kansas, and a big area of marginal risk that covers much of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, western Tennessee, back into southeast Missouri and into parts of Arkansas. And in the long range, we've got something on day 4. So this is Monday into Tuesday. No, I'm sorry. Let me make sure I got the right days. Day 4 is Sunday into Monday. Eastern North South Dakota and about half of Minnesota and a sliver of northwest Wisconsin under an implied slight risk of 15%. So when it's in the long range, it usually means that it's something to pay attention to. And a lot of rain in the middle, Joe. Um, Areas of 5 inches plus in Arkansas, a pretty large area of 3 inches plus that covers parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, uh, Western Tennessee, back into Mississippi. It's really funny how, this whole area in the middle last year couldn't buy a drop of rain. And it's the the rubber band rule. Snaps, well, gets pulled to one extreme, it snaps and goes in the other way, the balancing of the checkbook. And this is truly a balancing of the lack of rain that they had last year, where the Mississippi River was dried up in some places. Not the case this year.
No, definitely not. As I've said time and time again, Mother Nature always likes to balance the checkbook. She's balanced it certainly in the Gulf Coastal region, where again last year when we were looking at the drought situation, it was on verging on extreme, and now none of that. Now the question is, she's alleviated the drought, but now when is she going to let up? Sometimes she doesn't let up for a while. Then you go to the
No,
other problems.
the rainfall amounts up and down the coastal plain, very little. A tenth of an inch for much of New Jersey, Long Island, the Hudson Valley into Connecticut. Little to no rain in Maine and southeast New England. Little to no rain from southeast Virginia down into northeast Florida. But go into Pennsylvania and points west, and that's where you start to get into the 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half, particularly on the west side of the Appalachians. And of course, you got that big area of heavy rain that we just described. There's also a big area of heavy rain for Minnesota, northern Iowa, northwest Wisconsin, into central Canada. Actually, it's good to see this. And the other good part about this is when, the wish the map doesn't go far enough north, but, a lot of areas in Canada have been experiencing or were experiencing dry conditions going back to last summer. And the rains that are at least extending northward up through the middle is not a bad thing. Even if it's on the heavy side, it's not a bad thing.
Anything to preclude what we went through last year with the thick smoke from forest fires from Canada. If we can just get some moisture to tamp down those forest fires and help to moisten the ground in what was, as you pointed out, Joe, a very dry scenario last year, yeah, that certainly would help.
All right, so the issue for the weekend, well, there's a couple of things. So I'll put up the upper air here. And of course, we've got this trough in the east that's now moving offshore. And as Joe pointed out, it's going to be a very cool night as the axis of that trough is right on the coast. So it's the coolest of the cool air is overnight. And then, of course, as the trough swings eastward, we start to get into a ridge position during the day Friday. And Saturday looks really nice, probably with warm temperatures that should get into the 80s, at least away from the immediate coast. Now, here's that ripple I'm talking about here. And I'll just roll it back, you'll see there's this little upper low, which tomorrow night is going to be in southeast Kansas, southwest Missouri. Now, this is going to be the trigger mechanism for tomorrow's severe weather, clearly. That upper low, it just kind of doesn't really do very much. It actually weakens a little bit. You still see that little indentation in the flow as it moves eastward. It's hard to find by the time we get to Sunday evening, so it is weakening as it moves along, but there's still some semblance here of a shortwave, a little shortwave that is moving through Sunday afternoon into Sunday evening. And it's from this that we'll have to throw in the chance that there could be a couple of scattered showers. Uh, who knows, maybe even the isolated rumble of thunder with that. And then once that goes by, at least it brings us into a warmer start for next week. Although I would be a little cautious here as far as temperatures go next week, if only because of the fact that the flow kind of looks a little onshore-ish. So inland areas might warm up, but if you get too close to the coast, you're probably going to have to deal with, a bit of an onshore flow and maybe temperatures that are lower. And at least as far as anything important happening, uh, we're going to probably have to wait to the middle or latter part of next week as we get into some troughing here in the eastern part of the United States. Model keeps wanting to drop some kind of cutoff in the lower Great Lakes and dropping it down into the southeast and right, all the way down as far south as north. You don't see cutoffs get this far south too often, uh, especially in this time of year. But there you have it. Wanting to drop a cutoff down over me by the time we get to the end of next week and next weekend. Now, if it's too far south, if it's that far south, it might be nice weather uh, for the Northeast down the road next weekend. On the other hand, it could also eventually just lift up along the East Coast, as this model is showing, and that might bring some rainy weather next weekend. But I guess we can deal with that. That's going to be our dilemma for next week, is to try to figure out how real that is and what it's going to do.
And don't forget, Dr. Cohen had pointed out that upper air patterns seem to indicate that after the first week of June, that a trend toward noticeably cooler weather will be moving in for especially the middle part of the month of June, unseasonably cool air. So we'll see if that happens. But if it does, at least you've got next week to hang your hat on. Uh, a nice warming trend after a rather chilly, as I said, night coming up tonight.
You see the heavy rain and thunderstorms in East Texas overnight into Friday morning. They'll fire up again tomorrow. And then what's left of that moves up into the Ohio Valley on Saturday. Of course, here it's nice weather up and down the eastern seaboard on Friday. And even on Saturday, it looks pretty good. Here comes that that the dying area of showers. It weakens. That's the one thing. It does weaken by the time it gets to the coast Sunday afternoon into Sunday evening. So there's not going to be much left to it other than clouds and maybe some scattered showers. Then that goes out. Monday and Tuesday look basically dry with a high to the northeast. and kind of an onshore flow, but nothing, not an onshore flow that would cause a problem. Just makes for some temperature issues along the immediate coast. And then as we head on, it's probably the second half of next week, depending on what that upper low does, or how the upper air sets up in the eastern part of the United States. Looks like, at least from this run, it wants to bring mostly rain to the Carolinas and Virginia, down into North Florida. And of course, if this verifies, Joe, if there's an upper low that far south and I'm on the west side of it, it's going to be nice and cool over here.
Well, enjoy.
Oh, I'm the last person to complain about it.
But like I said, you're putting your 2,200 foot elevation to good work or good use.
Oh yeah, it certainly works for me. All right, let's do a little brittle. Let's do a little bit of Briller Jeopardy, shall we? Surely.
Yes, 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 yes. And in order to do it, I have to get to Mr. Briller's page, and I'm doing that right now. And what we have here on this edition of Briller Jeopardy, Extremes in June at Central Park. And the first question out of the box, Joe, is what was the highest temperature ever in June?
I want to say 101.
Oh, a silly millimeter longer.
I knew you
You're
were going to
right.
go down that road.
You're right. You're right. It was 101, June 27th, 1966. This date also holds the record for the only day ever in June to have an overnight low above 80. The low was 81. So we had a high of 101, a low of 81, and a mean or average temperature for this date, June 27th, 1966, of 91 degrees in Central Park.
Very
Wow.
impressive.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
What's next?
Number two, what was the lowest temperature ever in the month of June? By the way, a whole slew of people came up with the correct answer. Vincent Croce of 101, Christiapedia, uh, Miss Blue Ocean, William Huber, they all had it at 101 degrees. Now, the lowest temperature ever in the month of June.
I'm going to say, I got to believe it must have been at the beginning of the month. Um, I'll say, I'm going to say 43.
Just missed it, Joe. Snake Country. But Rich Rothmansky did get it. 44 degrees, and you were absolutely right. It was at the beginning of the month, the very beginning of the month, June 1st, 1945.
Wow.
Okay. Number three, coldest daytime maximum temperature in June. Coldest daytime max temperature in June.
Uh, I'm going to say, I'll say 54.
Again, quite close. Believe it or not, a little bit on the mild side
Yeah,
compared.
I was going to say 52.
And you should have gone with 52 because that
52, because that's the right answer. Yeah, I figured.
June 2nd, 1947. Interesting. The lowest temperature ever in June, June 1st, 1945, and 1 year and 1 day later, the coldest max temperature, June 2nd, 1946, 52 degrees.
Must have been a really miserable rainy day with a northeast wind and a low offshore, I bet, because that couldn't have been with sunshine.
Yep. Okay, here we only have four questions tonight. This is the last one. What was the most 90-degree days ever recorded in the month of June at Central Park? The most 90-degree days in June in the month of in the month of June at Central Park, which I assume would
In 1 month, I'll say, I mean, this is kind of tough. I'll say 6.
no, and that's way down. Believe it or not.
Way too low.
Yeah,
Well, Frank Scalera saying 9.
Maggie P. You said 20. That's way too much. Norm Roberts is practically there with his 10.
Oh, which means that it was 11.
It was 11, and I don't have it in front of me, the records, but 1943 must have been the hottest June on record, if not the hottest, one of the hottest Junes. 11 90-degree days recorded in June 1943.
Wow. Well, Vincent Croce, Chuck Cardillo, and Mike Waterhouse came up with 11 as well. So, all right. You know what? It's a Thursday night, and we are, we've got the next 2 nights off. I am going to, tomorrow morning, I'm going to Trash and Treasures, which is the weekly sort of organized yard sale at the farmers market. And then Saturday is the the first Saturday of the farmers market, which is every Saturday uh, here in Blairsville, every Saturday, I think from 9 till 2 or 8 a.m. till 2, something like that. Um, and that goes on till the end of October. So fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, and all sorts of other knickknacks and things. And next weekend, Joe, the weekend of the 8th and 9th, is the Scottish Festival here. And they
In
do all these Scotland type things, like throwing telephone poles and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Well, I've been wanting to go the last 3 years. I've been here 3 years. This is my fourth year, here in North Georgia. And I've been wanting to go to the Scottish Festival. The first year I was here was COVID, so it was canceled. The second year, it was pouring rain. No, I don't remember what happened the second year. I think I was away that weekend doing something somewhere else. And then last year I was going to go, but it was pouring rain on both days, so I didn't. So hopefully this year I will get to go to the Scottish Festival.
well, I hope you enjoy yourself. I hope you don't see a
Uh,
two-headed dragon.
yeah, but that's not this weekend. That's next weekend. So,
Yeah.
um,
Thank you to the people who tuned in tonight and the 31 likes that we were able to garner with a relatively small crowd. But I'm sure things will pick up as the weather gets more active.
well, once the first threatening tropical storm is on the table, you'll probably well, it'll pick up. It always gets like this every spring. So.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right, folks, have a great night and a great weekend, and we will see you Sunday night at 7:35 p.m. Nighty night.
Nighty night, folks.